Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mark, for inviting myself and inviting Aspire to be a partner of this event and of the association. And we're very pleased about that and the progress that the association is making. So my name is Andrew Hallam. I run another association called Aspire. And what Aspire is the association of business services and technology centres here in Krakow. So I've been asked to spend 15 minutes just to introduce what the landscape for business services and technology services looks like in Krakow. Now, I have a couple of questions, because I was asked to prepare a couple of questions for the Inventory app, but I understand we're actually going to go analog, because the questions are not in the system. All right, so you're not going to be voting on your phones. You're going to be holding your hands up. Okay, so we'll try that one. Right, so I wanted to get an idea of who actually is in the room. So, as I say, let's do this in an analog way. So if you are based in Krakow, hands up, please. Okay, you can put them down. I might ask you to put them up again. And that looked like about 30% to me. In Poland, but not in Krakow. 2? Okay, there's quite a lot of rivalry between cities in Poland. From Central and Eastern Europe, but not Poland. Okay, quite a good number. And from outside of Central and Eastern Europe. Okay, so also, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? It's got nothing to do with my presentation, but it's actually very true that Polish people are actually not very mobile within Poland. They're mobile around the world, but they're not mobile in Poland. Okay. Okay, and where do you work? So, who works in shared services? Okay, I think that's well over 50%. Who's a solutions provider in IT? Okay, and a solutions provider non-IT? Okay, other? I think that didn't add up to 100%, but anyway, okay. All right, thank you very much. Right, so Krakow, just a bit about Krakow, the business services and technology services sector. This is a timeline, not quite as fancy as Mark's videos and animation, but anyway, this is a timeline of entrance into the Krakow market over the last 20 or so years. And as you see, it gathers pace from 2004 onwards, when Poland joined the European Union. And there's no sign of that slowing down. This is in terms of new entrants to the market. So there you have it. I'm sure you can't read those names, but and I'm not going to read them out to you. But there you can see it in terms of brand. And brand's important because what we've realised is that brands attract brands. If you think of the environment in which shared services are created, I mean, multinationals are, by and large, risk averse, and migrating processes from one location to another location is a risky business. So one of the things I think why brand, we can talk about the magic of brand, but one reason I think brand works is really it demonstrates that others have been there before you and can do it, and takes an element of risk or provides a certain comfort level to companies that are looking at the market. And we used to talk about something called proof of concept. And you see that working in terms of individual centres, that it will take 2 to 3 years as that proof of concept works through the organisation. But when you've got a collection of other multinationals that are operating in a location, then in a certain sense that proof of concept it's also there in terms of those companies, because you can see what they have done and where they're looking to go. So those are the brands. As I say, new entrants are coming in, so that's just over the last 24, 27 months or so. And this all adds up in terms of Krakow's status within the business services environment globally. So this is a ranking. It's the Thollins Services Globalization Index for cities. And Krakow finds itself in the top 10 globally. Those cities that sit above are largely, as one would expect, in India and then one in the Philippines. So Dublin and Krakow kind of vie for first position within Europe. And then you can see, this is plotted over the last 10 years of that ranking, cities in Central and Eastern Europe. Now the reason that I show this is not because Krakow's in number 1 place there, though that's part of the reason that I show it. It is to show that the cities, if this was simply a cost play, I think what you would expect is lower cost cities and second cities in countries in CE would rise up those rankings. And in fact, what you see over a 10-year period is that the capital cities in the more established countries are actually pulling away from the other cities. Krakow kind of bucks that trend, but that's because Krakow is a kind of, it has capital city qualities without necessarily having capital city costs. I mean, I think that's one of the things that one can say. Another thing that we'll see is, to a certain extent, this is a mono economy. I mean, this is a shared services economy. 25% or more of 25 to 34-year-olds in Krakow work in business services or in technology services. And how does that all translate into jobs? So we at Aspire do something called the headcount tracker, which is where we go out to the market and ask the companies in the market what their current headcount is and what they expect their headcount to be within the next 12 months. And we've been doing it for 5 or 6 years. And so we can say with a degree of confidence that this is the number of people employed currently in Krakow. This is Krakow alone. So at the beginning of this year, just under 60,500. And by the end of this year, 70,500. So we will add 10,000 jobs this year. And over that 6-year period or 5-year period, there's been a 21% compound annual growth rate. Those are the headline figures. So it's 28 new jobs every day. And we know it's accurate, so we've been running it a number of years, and so it has around a 99% accuracy in terms of that forecast, which is not surprising because you would expect companies to know what kind of projects they've got on the table for the coming 12 months. There are just under 250 companies on that radar. I'm not suggesting we look at this, but in any detail, that will be available after the conference for anybody that wants to. I think it'll be on the association website. But just to note that the blue, so the blue dots represent IT companies, and the red dots represent companies that are delivering business services from Krakow. And here you can see in terms of growth. it's not really surprising, but the longer that a company is in the market, then the bigger it gets. So the average headcount for those that have been in the market for 12 years or more is now 395, and so it's climbing every year. And the reason for that, of course, is that over time companies are expanding and extending their scope, both in terms of functions but also in terms of processes, which is kind of summed up in this slide by the evolution of the market as climbing the value chain. And this is not new research. I think we did this about 18 months ago, just asking our members, and I should have said that we have 200 members, but asking our members if their scope had increased in the last 3 years. As you can see, almost 3/4 their scope has expanded in finance, in IT, in HR, and so on. And 3/4, or just over 3/4, are planning scope expansion over the next 3 years. Always in finance, but there's a growing trend now in HR services and in procurement. In terms of IT, and you'll have seen from that list I gave, so lots and lots of IT. Aspire kind of embraces both technology and business services, but they are industries which are coming together. In terms of IT, you can see that at the beginning it was really very much about staff augmentation, but not really now. Really, it's about innovation and product ideas. With some particular verticals or global expertise in certain verticals, such as travel technology and in fintech and Internet of Things. The same thing is happening in finance. And I think this is very interesting. I mean, it's an environment, if you imagine, in which 70,000 people work, where over a 10, 15-year period has been an incredibly dynamic landscape, which is really a landscape which is all about change management. That in terms of robotics process automation, you can see that in terms of Krakow, but I'm sure this is true of other cities in CEE, the appetite for robotics is well in excess of a global average. So what we've got here is, on the left-hand side, is the Hackett Global Performance Survey, and on the right-hand side is an Aspire benchmark with the same questions. And so in terms of planning to invest, the global figure is around 2%. In Krakow, it's 55%. And just to finish with a couple of slides which, I mean, certainly from the position of the UK, I mean, shared services is not necessarily regarded as a career by many. These are not necessarily regarded as good jobs. In cities like Krakow, these are extremely good jobs. We're employing graduates, 99%. I think it would be graduates. Very often, well, almost certainly with master's degrees, very often with PhDs. They're earning on average 70% higher than the average wage. So these are extremely well-paid jobs. The growth and development in the industry means that there are development opportunities. And so the reason that people leave is when they feel that they don't have development opportunities, but within the industry as a whole, there certainly are development opportunities. And you can see the value that the industry is delivering to the local economy, which is around $2 billion US per annum. So essentially, our industry in Krakow, but as I say, I'm sure this is true of other cities around CEE, they are transforming. They're transforming the physical landscape. They're transforming the culture of these cities, because that $2 billion USD is actually being spent. I mean, most of that is salary, and it's being spent in the local economy. My people that actually have good disposable income, and so whereas institutions, local authorities, etc., tend to be still run by an older generation, the purchasing decisions are being made by the younger generation. And this is just the point I made earlier. So again, I mean, this is data from a couple of years ago. So at that point, it was 22%. I'm pretty sure now that it's over 25% of that generation of 25 to 34-year-olds in Krakow being employed by our industry. My time is up. So, and I've only just noticed that. I don't know if that just came up. I mean, this is to Mark's point, really, about the importance of coming together to share learning. I mean, this is the way Aspire works. We have these special interest groups, which we call expert groups and leaders groups. And because it's such a dynamic landscape, that's why people need to come together as peers, is to understand what the possibilities and the potential is within the industry, within a market. You know, if you're just looking up and down, you don't necessarily see that. But if you come in and you talk to your peers and you develop a strong relationship of trust, you can really learn from each other. So, I mean, we operate in exactly the same way as the ACCEE. I'm not going to go into this. This is a salary tracker. It goes into some more detail about this specific market in terms of people. But I've put it here. I knew I wouldn't have time to discuss it, but it'll be on the association's website, so you can flick through and have a look at what's happening with people and what's happening with salaries. And what's happening also in terms of, which is one point I will make, which is in order for our industry to go in particular locations, we actually have to become destinations. And it means that it's not just about educating people that are already here, it's about the ability to attract people into this location. And in fact, 18% of new hires in Krakow last year were foreign nationals. And that doesn't mean necessarily from the east, from Ukraine and Belarus, but it also means from Western Europe, from the US, and from Asia. Thank you very much.